Hey family, I have a quick teaching on the parable of the Good Samaritan. So if you have some time to spare, please join me for the lesson. We're at Luke, the 10th chapter, verse 25 through 29. And here we encounter Jesus teaching us how we all can inherit eternal life. Let's take a look. It reads, "And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tempted him, saying, Master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said unto him, What is written in the law? How readest thou? And he answering said, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself. And he said unto him, Thou hast answered right. This do, and thou shalt live. But he, willing to justify himself, said unto Jesus, And who is my neighbor? So if we briefly pause here, we see that Jesus has given us a vital piece to this puzzle of life. He has taught us how to pull fruit from the tree of life. When you love God, you will obey his commandments. When you love God, you will respect his authority. When you love God, you will live life according to his standards, not because you feel forced to, not because you feel afraid and you feel the need to do it in fear, but because you want to make him proud, you want to make him happy, and you want to show him how much he means to you. God does not want you to live for him out of force. And he definitely doesn't want you to live for him as a slave, miserable and unhappy. He wants you to live for him because you choose to, because it makes you feel good, because you see that it is the best life that could be lived. When you love someone, you love everything that they are, good or bad. Yes, at times you'll see the negative aspects of an individual, but you believe in them that those things can be fixed. And you believe on them that they will grow into their greatest possible version of themselves. That faith that you have in the one you love is what keeps you solid for them. It keeps you grounded for them. And it keeps you intertwined with them, believing that they will be great. When you love God, you actively feel it, you actively show it, and you love him because you're connected to him and you want what's best for your relationship with him, not because you feel forced to. That's how you love him with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. He's all you think about. Pleasing him is all you think about because you know he's always thinking about you. He's constantly protecting you. He's constantly blessing you. He's constantly got you on his agenda to make sure you're okay. So, of course, when you love someone, you return the favor. You're in his heart, so he should be in yours. It's really a fair exchange of two entities sharing time and space with each other because they love each other. And so loving God is an active thing, not an idle thing. But this issue here that's presented is, how do you recognize who your neighbor is to love your neighbor? See, it's very easy to recognize God and to love God. But it's difficult to recognize your neighbor. It can be a hardship because you don't want to pour love and attention into someone that you thought was a neighbor, but they're really an enemy. who plans to distract you, take you off balance, and destroy you. No, you don't want to pour love into those individuals. In fact, you try to stay far away from them. Not saying that you can't love an enemy, but it's the way that you would love an enemy versus the way you would love a neighbor. You would put distance between you and an enemy and be at peace. A neighbor you draw close to and you offer assistance knowing that they are safe, whereas an enemy is not. So there's boundaries that must go up for your protection. But again, who is my neighbor? At verse 30 through 37, Jesus gives us a great example of how to spot our neighbor. Let's take a look. He says, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment and wounded him and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him, and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him, and went to him, and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow, when he departed, he took out 2 pence, and gave them to the host, and said unto him, Take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay thee. Which now of these three thinkest thou was neighbor unto him that fell among the thieves? And he said, He that showed mercy on him. Then said Jesus unto him, Go and do thou likewise. So now we've grown to understand who our neighbor is. Our neighbor is not someone we take for face value, or we worried about their stature or their status. No, that's not something you're going to see on the surface of an individual. To really detect who your neighbor is, you have to get down to the spirit. You have to weigh the spirit. You have to see their actions. Neighbors will love you enough to sacrifice for you. Neighbors will love you enough to labor for you, expecting nothing in return. Neighbors care about your well-being. See, this Levite that came past didn't care for this man's well-being. This priest that came past didn't care about this man's well-being. But the Samaritan did. And he actively did the works to the best of his ability and his capability to make sure that this man was taken to safety and put in a place where he could recover and heal completely from his wounds. He did the best he could to make sure he was all right. That in itself is more than just mercy. That is a kindness and a compassion. That is how you spot who your neighbor is. Your neighbor is someone who cares about your well-being and contributes to it. Isn't that an amazing message? In but so many words, in just one simple parable, Jesus taught us not only how to get eternal life and how to love God, but also how to love one another. That's all I have for you. I'm Judge Seraphim, and I'm out.